Hello there, you're watching Musings with Wolf. I'm Wolf, and these are my musings. So I'm just going to tell a story today, and if you find it interesting, you'll listen to it, and if you don't, you probably won't listen to it. Wink. Right, so I'm fresh out of education. I'm a very, up until this point in my life, I've been a happy, mentally stable young wolf. Mental health is not something I've considered much, as it was always pretty good. Now, I have times in my childhood or teenagehood, even, I remember being really sad, and those dark thoughts, drift past my mind, but overall, pretty good, pretty happy. I left education. I was working in a factory in the northwest of England, and I wasn't very happy. If I look back in time, it's hard to tell what was me and what was the factory's fault. It's easy to the opposite of romanticize your past, but who knows? If I worked there now I'm in a better headspace, it might have been okay. But at the time, I'll just say I wasn't enjoying it. I was doing some things that weren't best for my mental well-being. And I decided to leave and go traveling. And I was very down, like, to say the least. I would just be like, couldn't go to some places in the factory due to anxiety, just like have an anxiety attack. And this really wasn't me. I was like, that's what the weird thing about it. I was like, where the hell did this come from? Which was probably trauma and intoxicants and stuff, and all that, enhancing it. But yeah, I was just randomly crying on Christmas Day, and it was a very dark, hard time of my life. So I quit drinking. That was the one big thing. I booked a flight to Australia to go traveling, and I flew there. I didn't have any plans. I stayed at family members for a little while, a couple of weeks, and then when I went off on my own, so I stayed in a hostel in Melbourne, as I can remember, and I met this French fella, and he was really cool. He had a big beard, and he used to eat one Domino's pizza every day, and he'd work on a construction site all day. And that's one thing I remember about him. And we also went rock climbing together. That was pretty cool. And he opened up about some stuff, which I won't divulge because it's not his stuff it's not my stuff even to divulge. And I was like, blimey, he's opening about some stuff. I'm going to open up about some stuff. And that was the kind of first, quite close connection I made while I was traveling. Anyway, I travelled up the coast of Australia, Melbourne to Sydney. Got as far as Sydney, and I was in a store one day, and there were these two girls in the store, and I said, hello, I'm looking for an earring. And the slightly older, sorry, there were three girls, but two of them were young ladies, one of them was a bit older, and the older lady was listening to the conversation I was having with these two girls, and she kept asking me questions. She was like, are you good at this? And I was like, no, not really. Because I was like, these questions are so random. I was like, no, I'm not good at that. Are you good at this? And I was like, no, not really. And so then she randomly said, like, my husband's looking for like someone to work in his auction house. He works in an antique store. Would you be interested? I was like, whoa, that's really random. And I was like, yeah, sure, because I needed some money and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no direction. I'd stopped drinking. I'd stopped doing unwholesome things, which I was doing when I was a bit younger. And I was like, okay, I'll just do positive things. And I was looking for something, but I didn't really know what I was looking for. I was looking to better my mental health, and I was kind of open to, within reason, anything that would offer me a solution to having poor mental health. And yes, so yeah. Anyway, so I got a job in this antique store. It all went well. And a few weeks prior, it was my birthday. And while I was staying at my family member's house, my dad had given me George Harrison Living in the Material World DVD. And I watched that and I think, oh yeah, George Harrison, he's a pretty cool guy. He seems like not such a, he talks about real things, not just superficial nonsense the whole time. So I was like, okay. And it struck a chord with me that he had Hare Krishnas around him a lot. So they stuck in my mind because I was like, these people look happy. This is what I thought at the time. I don't know. Now I'd have a different opinion, but I thought these people look happy. They're dancing around, eating lovely vegetarian food with really nice, colourful clothes on. So they stuck in my mind. And going back to the antique store, I was working there, and I remember I was sat just watching people pass by. I really liked working there. It was just some Australian fellas selling antiques. And the Hare Krishnas dance past the window. And where I'm from in the northwest of England, I'm not from anywhere you will have heard of. I would bet money you haven't heard of where I'm from. I don't think there's any Hare Krishnas, but there might be. So it's not something I'd ever witnessed before. And it's like, well, these guys are pretty happy dancing around in that. So I found out that their temple is in a part of Sydney, and I went there for a day. And when I went there, this fella, basically, I was the only white-skinned wolf there. I think I remember one other guy, and it was loads of South Asian people, mainly Indian, most likely, and which doesn't matter. But for me, I'm from a very I'm not used to being the like a minority. I've always lived in an area which is mainly white, and it was quite cool. I was like, oh, cool. I feel like I'm in a completely different country and culture because obviously Australia's quite similar to the UK, and yeah. And so I went to this Hare Krishna thing, and he said it was like a short little talk, but it turned out to be a freaking massive ceremony with loads of dancing and chanting, and then afterwards there was food, and they towered my plate up with food. And then when I was like, however old I was, I looked a few years younger, so they probably just thought I was this kid that needed fed, and they plated my plate up like plated right to the top, and yeah, it was good. It was really cool. Everyone there was really lovely. But it wasn't for me. I really like the Hare Krishnas. I think like if I was ever going to be a religious person, I think I'd just join them. It looks like fun, but the I guess it is for me. It's just not what I practice every day, like chanting Hare Krishna. But it is for me. I'd go again. I take what I need from it. I don't have to separate myself from this belief. this belief system. But so anyway, I continued on my journey. I bought a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, The Miracle of Mindfulness, and I was reading it in the hostel. You bearing in mind, I was in an environment which wasn't conducive to, in a lot of ways, spiritual practices and stuff. Just living in a hostel where people drink and all this. And then I travelled up from Sydney. I went to Byron Bay. I'm sure you've all heard of it. I was in a van full of like travellers, very illegally placed all over the van in different spots, leaning out of little crevices, and yeah, not very safe. I probably wouldn't advise it, but I was a young, silly sausage. And yes, we travelled up the coast and we got to Byron Bay, and I was like, okay, I'm going to stay here for a bit. And yes, Byron Bay was a cool place. There was a Hare Krishna canteen. I don't know if it's still there. It's called the Cardamom Pod. It was very, the food was so good. I would eat, I would just have like, there's a trend now, I've seen it, or at least maybe about a year ago, it's quite trendy. I don't try and spend too much time on the internet, but OMAD, one meal a day. And I was just doing that because I was like skint, like no, skint is a word, no money. And yeah, so I was just having one, like I could get so much nutrition and good food for like very cheap at that Hare Krishna place. I ate there so much. Instead of cooking my own, which would have been more expensive, probably buying all the different bits and bobs. I don't advise doing this, by the way, because it's even in healthy places, they often add lots of unhealthy things. And yeah, no, that was amazing. And I somehow heard wind of a Thai forest monk who was living in a yurt in a forest just outside of the town. And I was like, okay, I'll give that a go. A couple of weeks later, I'd gone to another Hare Krishna thing with a French girl I was traveling with, and her friends. They invited me to go to this transcendental Hare Krishna meditation. But again, it was cool, but it wasn't for me. And I ended up, finding out about this Thai forest monk, and I thought, yeah, I'll go there. So I walked for a long, long time with these terrible instructions on how to get there. And I came to this dude's house, and it was like dark by the time I got there. Someone found me like kind of stumbling around the woods, and he invited me in, and there was a few other people there, and he chatted, and then we did some meditations. It wasn't really a guided thing. And then he sat me down, and it was me, him, and a guy who opened up about his issues to me later, and he'd been struggling quite a bit, because he actually gave me a lift back into the town. But yeah, we had topics, and I think one was on topics to discuss. So I was with this dude and the monk, and I think it was love, death, and I can't remember. And you just talk about them. And that was quite cool. And I really liked this monk. He seemed really chill. Sorry, he was a retired monk. He had like long hair. He was Thai. And I think he had children. But sorry, I got a bit of a headache. Yeah. So he had children, and yeah. Oh my god. I've just seen my wait, 15. I've only got 2 more minutes. Maybe I'll have to do this in 2 parts. So yeah, he had children, and where was I? And I found him really inspiring. And then I decided I need to get some work. So I moved up to Brisbane. And there was a fella who I used to hang around with in Byron Bay, an Italian fella. And he was the same as me, not partying and all this stuff. And he just wanted to talk about things. Um, like, he talked about duality and all this stuff, which I found very interesting. I wanted a spiritual path, I guess, or at least I didn't consciously know I did. And he would talk about things and they would interest me, but never anything would click too much. And yeah, so this fella, he was in Byron, and he moved back to Brisbane, and I didn't really contact him there. And when I moved to Brisbane, not back. And then when I went to Brisbane, I got off the bus. Brisbane's a big city. I think it must be like 3 or 4 million at least. And as soon as I walk off the bus, I see this head glide past, and everywhere's empty. And I'm like, I don't know anyone in Brisbane. I didn't even know I knew he was in Brisbane. He could have went elsewhere by then, by the time I went up. And he walked past, and I was like, said his name, and he turned around and he was like, oh, what the... He was absolutely bonkers. Out of millions and millions of people to just see walk past you in a bus station. Yeah, that was nuts. And anyway, so I started talking to him. Right, this is going to have to be in 2 parts because my time is almost out. Right, this is part 1. I'll see you in part 2. Adios. Oh, whoops. I was just itching my chin.